Today, we're digging into a story that honestly sounds like science fiction. We're talking about a lost city, 5,000 years old, where doctors were performing brain surgery, and artists, well, they were basically creating the world's first animation. Yeah, you heard that right. All right, let's just jump straight in. I want you to picture this. It's 5,000 years ago, right? You've got some kind of serious head injury or a condition that's causing immense pressure in your skull. Could you survive brain surgery back then? I mean, the answer's gotta be no way, right? It sounds like a death sentence.
Well, what if I told you the answer is actually yes? Because in a lost city in ancient Iran, a 13-year-old girl didn't just have that surgery. She lived to tell the tale. And that's just the beginning of this incredible story.
So where are we talking about? Going to a place called Shahr-i Sokhta in modern-day Iran. And its name literally means the burnt city. Kind of ominous, right? But what we're going to find there is just a city of shocking firsts and some really deep puzzles. Now, this place was founded way back, around 3200 BC. And you got to understand, this wasn't some tiny village. No, this was a massive, bustling city, a real metropolis of its day, perfectly located to be a major crossroads for trade between Central Asia, the Persian Gulf, pretty much the whole known world at the time. And right away, we hit this huge contradiction. Archaeologists who first found it saw these thick layers of ash everywhere. So naturally, they called it the burnt city. Makes sense, right? Must have been destroyed in a massive fire. But here's the crazy part. After digging for 100 years, they haven't found a single weapon. No walls, no forts, nothing. Which led to its other nickname, the City of Peace. So what gives? A burned-out war zone or a peaceful utopia?
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we really need to look at the people themselves. And honestly, the most jaw-dropping discoveries have to do with their medical skills. Remember that 13-year-old girl I mentioned? This is her skull. She had something called hydrocephalus, a really painful condition where fluid builds up in the brain. So what did her doctors do nearly 5,000 years ago? They performed brain surgery. They cut out a triangle-shaped piece of her skull to relieve that pressure. And we know for a fact she survived. How? Because you can see right on the skull where the bones started to grow back around the cut. She lived for at least another 6 months. That is just mind-bending.
And you might think, okay, maybe that was a one-off, a lucky break. Nope, because in another grave, they found something just as incredible. Get this, the world's very first artificial eye.
And we're not talking about some glass marble here. This thing was a work of art. It belonged to a woman who was actually really tall, almost 6 feet. And it was made from this light mix of natural tar and animal fat. But the details, oh my gosh, the details. They actually used threads of gold, thinner than a human hair, to look like the tiny veins in an eyeball. Just think about that level of care and skill 4,800 years ago. It's stunning.
Okay, so they were medical geniuses. But this creativity, this brilliance, it wasn't just in the operating room. It was everywhere, in how they played, how they worked, how they saw the world. Take a look at this cup. Seems like a pretty normal piece of pottery, right? Found in a grave from 5,000 years ago. But if you look closer, you see 5 little pictures. It's a story. A goat sees a tree, jumps up, and starts eating the leaves. And here's the magic trick. When you spin the cup, it looks like the goat is actually moving. It's a cartoon. This is basically the world's first animation, thousands of years before we ever thought of it. They were even innovating their downtime. You've probably heard of the famous royal game of right? The big shot game from Mesopotamia? Well, the folks in the burnt city had their own board game. And frankly, it was a major upgrade. It was way more complex, had 60 pieces, these cool blocker tokens. It was less about luck and more about strategy. And what's really interesting is that it wasn't just for kings and queens. They found the set in the grave of a regular, well-off person. So fun was for everyone, not just the elite. And their obsession with getting things just right is almost unbelievable. Look at this. It looks like a ruler you might have on your desk, but it's made of ebony and it's thousands of years old. And the markings on it, they are so precise, the margin of error is less than half a millimeter. We're talking about a level of accuracy that we would be proud of with our modern tools. And that precision was in everything they did. Their textiles, so fine, you literally need a microscope to see the threads. Their city planning, they had a sophisticated water and sewage system with clay pipes. And they were masters of bling, importing gems from as far away as Afghanistan to make gorgeous jewelry. This was not a primitive society. This was a booming, high-tech industrial hub.
But let's go back to that other nickname, the City of Peace. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Well, when you start digging into the city's graveyard, and it's a huge one, we're talking maybe 40,000 graves, the story gets a whole lot murkier, a little darker.
You know, the lead archaeologist there put it perfectly. He said, the dead of the burnt city won't let archaeologists rest because their secrets just keep raising more questions about how peaceful this place really was. It's like a series of Bronze Age cold cases. You've got one guy buried with his head chopped off and placed down by his feet, with the dagger that probably did it right next to him. Was that an execution? Then there's a teenage boy found under a collapsed wall, but there's a heavy stone pestle right by his head that just doesn't belong there. An accident? Or a murder made to look like one. And then the weirdest of all, a man buried with a dozen other human skulls. So yeah, City of Peace might be a bit of an overstatement. So that leaves us with the two ultimate questions, right? First, what's the real story behind the name The Burnt City? And second, how does a civilization this advanced after 1,400 years of success just vanish? Okay, so that Burnt City name, the first guess was a massive fire, right? Well, that theory's pretty much out the window now. The modern thinking is that all that ash wasn't from one big catastrophe. It was pollution. The buildup of industrial smog and waste from thousands of pottery kilns and furnaces running for centuries. The city wasn't burned by an enemy. It was literally covered in the byproducts of its own incredible industry. So let's look at the timeline. It starts around 3200 BC, it hits its golden age, and it thrives for over a millennium. 1,000 years. But then, somewhere around 1800 BC, poof, nothing. The lights just go out. After 14 centuries, everyone is gone. So why? If there was no war, no great fire, why would you just walk away from a city this amazing? A city that was your home for generations? What could possibly make everyone leave? The most likely answer is something that sounds, well, a little too familiar. Climate change. The river that was the city's lifeblood started to move. The weather patterns shifted. Droughts became the new normal. So the farms failed, the trade dried up, and the people just left. It wasn't a sudden disaster. It was a slow, painful migration over many, many years as people just went looking for water. You know, the story of the burnt city just completely shatters the idea that ancient people were primitive. These were brilliant doctors, incredible artists, and genius engineers. Their story is one of amazing success and a quiet end at the hands of a changing planet. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other burnt cities are still out there, buried under the sand, holding secrets that could completely change how we see our own past?